Hello and welcome. My name is Tugu Permana, and in this presentation, I'll be taking you on a journey through the world of English in one of the most diverse and fascinating countries, Canada. This video is part of my final project for the course Word Englishes, where we explore how English has spread, changed, and adapted across the globe. So grab your virtual passport and let's explore how English lives and breathes in the Canadian context. Let's begin with a quick snapshot of Canada. Canada is the second largest country in the world by land area, located in the northern part of North America with a population of around 38 million people. Canada is known not just for its stunning natural landscapes like the Rocky Mountains and Niagara Falls, but also for its cultural and linguistic diversity. One of the most unique things about Canada is that it has two official languages, English and French. English is spoken by about 75% of the population, while French is spoken by around 23%, primarily in the province of Quebec. But here's something even more fascinating. Canada is home to over 70 indigenous languages and has welcomed immigrants from every continent, making it a truly multicultural and multilingual society. So, where does Canada fit into Kahru's three circles model? Canada belongs to the inner circle. This means English is used as a native or first language by a majority of the population and is deeply embedded in all aspects of Canadian life, from education and government to media and daily communication. It shares this status with other countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, and New Zealand. In these countries, English has historical roots and serves as the primary language for most functions in the society. But even within this inner circle, each country develops its own unique flavor of English, and Canada is no exception. To understand English in Canada today, we need to travel back in time. English first arrived in Canada in the 17th century with British colonists and settlers. At the time, much of Canada was under French control, but after the British defeated the French in the Seven Years' War in the 1760s, English began to spread rapidly. Over time, waves of British and Irish immigrants reinforced the use of English, especially in Ontario and the western provinces. But here's what makes Canada unique. Even during colonization, it remained a country of dual heritage, English and French. That balance has shaped not just Canadian law and culture, but also its language policies and identity. So, what does English look like in modern day Canada? Let's explore its role across several key areas. Education. English is the primary language of instruction in schools and universities in most provinces. From kindergarten to higher education, students are typically taught in English except in Quebec and some bilingual areas. Interestingly, there are French immersion programs across the country where English-speaking students can choose to learn in French, a great example of Canada's commitment to bilingualism. Government. At the federal level, Canada is officially bilingual. That means government documents, websites, and services are provided in both English and French. However, English is dominant in most provinces and is the language used in most political debates, campaigns, and public services, except in Quebec. Media. Turn on the TV in Canada and chances are you'll hear English, from CBC News to popular shows like Kim's Convenience and Schitt Creek. English dominates the media landscape. At the same time, There's also a lot of American media influence, but Canadian broadcasters are required by law to include a certain amount of Canadian content, known as CanCon, to preserve national identity. Business. In the world of business, English is essential. Whether it's corporate communication, marketing, or international trade, English is the default language, especially in global cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Calgary. Everyday life. In daily interactions, ordering coffee at Tim Hortons, chatting with friends, or scrolling through social media, English is the norm. However, in certain areas, especially around Montreal, it's common to hear both English and French being spoken in the same conversation. Now let's talk about what makes Canadian English special. Pronunciation. You've probably heard of the term Canadian racing. It refers to how Canadians pronounce the diphthongs in words like about and house, making them sound more like about or whose. It's a subtle difference but a fun one. Vocabulary. Canadian English mixes British and American words and also includes some uniquely Canadian terms. Washroom instead of bathroom. Loonie for a $1 coin. Toboggan for a sled. Chesterfield for sofa, an older term but still recognized. And don't forget the classic Canadian expression, eh. It's used at the end of a sentence to invite agreement, like, it's cold today, eh. Spelling. Canadian spelling often aligns with British conventions, such as color instead of color, center instead of center, but in other cases, American spelling is preferred, so it's a blend that reflects both influences. So, how do Canadians feel about English? Generally, English is seen as a practical and unifying language, especially in such a multicultural society. It's essential for success in education, business, and global communication. However, there are tensions too, especially in Quebec, where French speakers have fought to preserve their language and identity. The Quebec government even has language laws to protect French, limiting the use of English on signs and in businesses. And in recent years, there has been a growing movement to recognize and revive indigenous languages, many of which were nearly lost during Canada's colonial past. In this context, English can sometimes be seen as a symbol of that colonial legacy. So while English is widely accepted and used, there's also a strong awareness of the need to protect linguistic diversity. So, what I find most fascinating about English in Canada is its balance between dominance and diversity. On one hand, English is everywhere, spoken by the majority, used in education, politics, and the media. But on the other hand, there's this ongoing effort to protect other languages, especially French and indigenous languages. I admire how Canada is trying to create space for multiple languages to coexist rather than letting one take over completely. And honestly, I just love the sound of Canadian English. It's friendly, polite, and uniquely its own. Listening to Canadian TV shows or interviews always feels like being welcomed with a warm cup of coffee and a cozy blanket. Thank you so much for watching my presentation on English in Canada. I hope you found it informative, engaging, and maybe even a bit inspiring. If you have any thoughts or questions, I would love to hear from you. I think that's all from my presentation. So until next time, mercy and take care, eh?